Have you ever wondered what happens to the money that you pay in taxes, or how the government gets to know whether you have paid the right tax or amount? It begins with what we call a tax return. And in today's session, I am going to break it down for you. Imagine you're running a business, making some money, and every time you earn, you have to give a part of it to government. This money you give is called the tax, but it's not just taken and forgotten. As you know, the government is going to use it to fund things like schools, hospitals, roads, even public safety. But here is where it gets interesting. At the end of the year, you are supposed to tell government how much money you have already paid in taxes and how much money you owe. The process of letting government know how much money you've already paid and how much money you owe in taxes is the process we call filing a tax return. This process of filing a tax return enables government to know how much you have paid, how much you owe. It's like balancing the books at the end of the year, just so to make sure that you have paid the right tax amount. Filing a tax return means filling out specific forms. These forms are in form of Microsoft Excel templates that are retrievable on the Uganda Revenue Authority website. So these forms, when you're filling them in, it's more like making a formal declaration to the tax authority. And this declaration is what we call a tax return. In other words, this is your way of telling the government that, hey, this is what I made and this is what I owe in taxes. Now, according to our Ugandan law here, Uganda Revenue Authority is responsible for assessing all taxpayers. But if you think about it, we are more than 45 million Ugandans, and quite a sizable fraction of those Ugandans are registered for taxes. So it would require a huge amount of manpower to be able to assess each and every one. So because that kind of manpower is not existent, the thing to do here is to let everyone assess themselves. This is what we call self-assessment, or in other words, the self-assessment regime. So what happens is that you go to the URA website, you download a template, and you fill it in. When you fill it in and you upload to the portal, yes, you have assessed yourself, but that self-assessment is deemed, or it is a deemed assessment by the Commissioner, Domestic Taxes. So in other words, you look at your own financial affairs, you make your declaration, and the liability that comes from this self-assessment is considered to have been issued by the Commissioner for Domestic Taxes at Uganda Revenue Authority. Once you have made your assessment, you are required to pay the resulting tax. Now, what if the Commissioner feels that the assessment that you have declared is not accurate? That is when an additional assessment comes through. And that additional assessment is issued still by the Commissioner, Domestic Taxes. Now, we've covered about these assessments in another video, link to that in the video description. And just so you should take note that when I say that it's the Commissioner, Domestic Taxes that is going to issue that assessment, we do not literally mean the individual, okay? Well, that is how it's supposed to be, but what happens, or what the law provides for, is that this commissioner delegates responsibilities to tax officers. So when a tax officer issues an assessment to a taxpayer, they are either doing it on behalf of the Commissioner of Domestic Taxes, or they are doing it for the Commissioner of Domestic Taxes, depending on the tax head involved. So since we're talking about a tax return, what exactly is a tax return according to the Ugandan law? You know that when you do a tax return late, you're supposed to pay a penalty for filing that return late. So what is this thing called a return? According to our law, it can be a return of income, a return of rental income, a provisional tax estimate, a business information return, a VAT return, an excise duty return, or any other return required to be furnished under a tax law. And when we are talking about a tax law, any other return that is supposed to be furnished under a tax law, we are talking about the Income Tax Act, we are talking about the VAT Act, we are talking about the Gaming and Pool Betting Tax Act, we are also talking about the Local Excise Duty Act, and any other act imposing a tax law, as the minister may, by statutory instrument, declare. So in all these things that I have mentioned, take note that I have not mentioned pay as you earn. I have also not mentioned withholding tax. Pay as you earn and withholding tax technically are not tax returns. I think we shall discuss more on that later. So that what does that mean? It means that if you file, whereas the law says that if you do file a tax return late, you attract a penalty for filing it late. Since a withholding tax is there is no such thing as a withholding tax return, or payee is not considered a return. That is the technical term of it. It means that if you file a payee return late or a withholding tax return late, there will be no penalties for late filing. In other words, these are returns that can be filed at any time because they are accounted for on cash basis. In other words, for example, if it is pay as you earn, it can only be paid when salaries are paid. And there is no law that says that you should pay salaries by this amount, by this date. It's the same thing with withholding tax. So, well, we will discuss more on that later in another video. In today's video, I just wanted to explore what a tax return is. And so right now, I would like to share my screen and show you where we get these tax returns on the portal. So the general idea is that when you log into the URA portal, or even if you do not log in, there is a section where you're able to access these return templates. These templates are prescribed by the commissioner, and you download them, you fill them in, you fill in your information, and you upload them to the portal. When you do so, you will have made a declaration to Uganda Revenue Authority called a self-assessment declaration. And definitely the declaration will be approved. And in case there is an issue with that declaration, if the commissioner feels the declaration is not satisfactory, then an additional assessment can be issued, still by the commissioner. So this is before I get to share my screen and show you where these return templates are found, they are basically, this here is the general outlook. The outlook here is one, we have the templates for income tax. Then we have the templates for VAT. Remember, as far as our legal framework is concerned, it's mostly the Income Tax Act and then the VAT Act. So when it comes to the Income Tax Act, that is where we are going to find income tax and the pay as you earn, the withholding tax. It's all enshrined in the Income Tax Act. Then VAT Act talks about the value added tax. So it is, when it comes to income tax, it's mostly, the templates are mostly categorized in two broad categories. We have the individuals and the non-individuals. So templates for individual persons, we are talking about individuals like natural persons that are doing business, or natural persons that are employed. So that is when you are an individual. Then, of course, non-individuals is going to cater for other things like companies, non-governmental organizations, and other kinds of entities. Of course, we also do have the partnership template. If you are in partnership, there is a template for you to do the income tax return. And in all these cases, when it comes to income tax, definitely remember we have what we call the final income tax return and the provisional income tax return. So let's keep talking as I show you these templates, as I explain them one by one. So like I had mentioned, you find this on the URA portal. So on the URA portal, we have right here, ura.go.ug. So I'm going to go ahead. If you can log in if you do have an account, but I am not going to log in. I'm simply going to access them on the home page without logging in. So where do I go? I am going to go to domestic taxes up here. Once I hover my mouse there on the domestic taxes, I'm going to come down here to file a return. I'm going to go ahead and click on it. When I click on file a return, then right here, this shows up. There's a menu right here on this side, on the left hand side. So I come down here to download online return form right there. So I click on this. When I click on download online return form, this is what we have here. We do have the list of the templates that are available for us. So like I said, they're in just two broad categories. We have individuals and we have non-individuals. And of course, then plus the other monthly taxes that have separate templates on their own. So let's move. So from here, the outlook, you can see here, we have, these are the the headings, okay, of the return templates. We have this first column of links. These links, when you click on them, it simply shows you a template with instructions on how to fill up. So if you want a template that you're going to fill in directly, you come to the second row, to the second column right there. So from here, let's give, for example, an example here. We have income tax return for individual with business income right there. So if I want to download this, I simply come to the last one here, okay, in the second column, and I click on that. I click on it. So when I click on it like that, it's going to download. As you can see here, it's downloading. So after downloading it, I go to, as you can see here, I'm able to go ahead and right here, I'm able to go ahead and open it. So I'm going to click on it, or you go to your downloads folder and open it. And then once you open it, you're able to fill it in. So the dynamics on how this income tax return template is filled in, these I have covered in individual videos on the channel. Simply search them out. Here I'm just showing you, this is how the template looks like, okay? Let me close it. So how they are filled and how they are uploaded, those are videos, other videos that I have made. So here I'm just going through the overview. So like I said, we have individuals and non-individuals. Let's talk about individuals. So an individual, this is a natural person. For example, if you are an employee, you are an individual that is employed. If you are an individual with a business, you're a sole proprietor, meaning that you have not registered your business with Uganda Registration Services Bureau. It's not, in other words, you've not incorporated. You're just operating as a sole proprietor. It means you are an individual with business income. If you are an individual that has rentals, it means you are an individual with, just rentals. That is rental income that you're receiving. So there are templates here for you. So to file your final income tax, so here we have income tax return for individual with business income. This is if you're a sole proprietor. This is the template you will use. If you are an individual and you are an employee, now it is not compulsory for employees to file tax returns, but if you so happen to be a kind of employee where maybe you are unemployed and at the same time you have a side hustle, that is, we call it a side hustle, a business, then there is a template for you where you can declare all the income both from your employment and also income from the other sources of income. It's right there. So this is income tax return for individual with business income. This is income tax return for individual with employment income. They are both individuals, but just the kinds of incomes are different. Okay, so of course, before, whether you have business income or you have employment income, you are supposed to provide for these incomes. You're supposed to file a provisional income tax. I have explained the concept behind provisional income tax. I'm going to leave a link to that in the video description. So income tax right here, if you're an individual, And in order for you to file a provisional income tax return, before it used to be, there used to be a form. Okay, here is it. There is a form, income tax provisional return for an individual. Okay, but it was migrated to a web-based form. By web-based form means that when you log in, you just simply punch in figures into the web and you just click submit and it goes. So provisional income tax moved on to the web, but we still have the template here on the portal for I think it's for periods prior. Okay, maybe there could be somebody who wants to amend a provisional return in the past, but again, it does not apply. You cannot amend a provisional return when the year gets done. So I still do not know why this provisional template is still existent or accessible on the portal. It's something obsolete. We no longer file provisional like this. So that is as far as an individual goes. So let's talk about an individual earning rental income. From here you can see that we have an individual income tax return. Okay, individual tax return for an individual with employment stroke rental income. So in the past, rental income was, so you used to file rental income using this kind of template. Okay, now rental income is being filed separately. It's a new web-based form, okay, where rental income is being filed separately. So meaning that this part here, rental income, is obsolete unless somebody is trying to amend rental income of some previous years, in the previous year before they brought. I'm making this video in today is 22nd of August 2024. So this web-based way of filing rental income is a new thing. It is actually starting effective the last financial year. So for people who earn rental income from July 2023 onwards, rental income tax is being filed using a web-based form. We will be doing another video on that. But before July 2023, before, it used to be done using this template. So if you're an individual and you are filing rental income tax after July 2023, there is a new way of doing it. Before July 2023, this is the form. So it is still accessible here on the portal to give room probably for people who want to amend rental returns of like 2019, okay, rental returns for those past years before 2023. So we've talked about an individual. An individual will do a provisional income tax return, which is a web-based form, and afterwards they are supposed to do final. When they are doing the final return, it is either they are individuals with business income or they are individuals with employment income. And their web-based form, there are Excel templates here that I have showed you that do show, where an individual can file. And by individuals here, we are also talking about directors. Directors are also individuals. In this case, a director is an individual with employment income. But if a director is found to be having a TIN in the category of individual with business income, the template still provides for them to be able to declare their employment income as directors. Let's not forget that according to the Income Tax Act, a director of a company is considered an employee of the company. And so because they are considered an employee of the company, primarily they are supposed to feature on the pay-as-you-earn schedule as employees. If they do not feature on that pay-as-you-earn schedule as employees, then they are supposed to file individual directors' returns. And in these individual directors' returns, they're supposed to declare the income they have been earning as directors during the year of income. So let's move out from individuals Of course, the other thing about individuals is the rental thing that I've just talked about, which is a web-based form, which will be a video for another day regarding how it is filed. Okay, so now let's talk about companies, NGOs. In other words, non-individual. That's what I'm talking about. So when you come here, non-individual, we have income tax form for non-individual. So this is the template for income tax return for non-individual. It is a bit all-encompassing. It is very detailed. It tries as much as possible to, you know, to cater for all kinds of, you know, all kinds of businesses. Okay, all kinds of industries. Okay, so we have the income tax return for non-individual. This is the return. That's why it is quoted. Then of course also incomes, also companies or non-individuals, they're supposed to provide for their income. They are supposed to file provisional income tax returns. And so here we have a form for income tax provisional return for non-individual. Okay, income tax provisional return for non-individual. Now this income tax provisional return for non-individual, like I said, the new way of doing things here is provisional returns were shifted to a web-based way of doing it. I have a video where I have demonstrated how that is done, but it is still accessible here. Why? I don't know. Because let's face it, when you can only, first of all, you can only provide for a year of income you're in. Okay, if it is, for example, if this is, we are running 2024-2025, so when I am filing a provisional return, I can only do so during this year. Even when it comes to amending, I can only amend the provisional during the year. After the financial year is done, I can't amend. So basically, this is obsolete. This Excel template here is obsolete. I don't know why it's still accessible on the portal. So yeah, so individual for provisional, that's the thing. Provisional income tax return, it is now a web-based form. But when we are talking about, okay, provisional income tax return, it is obsolete, but it is web-based. So for non-individuals, it is either you're going to do, it is a provisional return, then the template is right here, income tax return for non-individual. Okay, so I think we've covered this. I think we've covered the first. I've talked about the first one. I've talked about the second one. For individuals, these ones are the ones, yeah. Then of course the first four, basically I've talked about them. So now, of course, there is an income tax return for partnership. Remember, when it comes to partnerships are just tax. It's just a tax accounting thing. After the accounting for partnerships has been done, the profits are distributed to the partners, and so the partners go ahead and declare their income as individuals. So if you are in a partnership, you are an individual in a partnership, so the partnership is a tax accounting entity, just okay, which it's just a tax accounting entity, but the profits that come out of the partnership, it's not the partnership that pays the income tax on that profit. That profit is distributed to the individuals, and the individuals are supposed to file their individual tax returns to pay the taxes on that income that they have gotten from the partnerships. And that provision for income obtained from a partnership, that provision does exist in that template of the individual tax returns. Okay, so we have also withholding tax return form. This is for withholding tax. Okay, I think the withholding tax is a bit wide. It requires a video on its own to talk about it in depth, but this is the template. Of course, here it's being called a withholding tax return. I think this is just English, but the technical term, technically speaking, as far as the Income Tax Act is concerned, withholding tax is not considered a tax return. Okay, it's the same thing with payee. Okay, they are calling it here pay as you earn return form. These are just forms that are used to account for employment income by the employer, but technically it's not a return according to the Income Tax Act. So that's why I was telling you that if you file these things late, there won't be penalties for late filing for pay and withholding tax. Okay, so I think we've talked about that. Then we have a form here for income tax return for a presumptive taxpayer. Now, income tax return for a presumptive taxpayer also, it's the same thing. Before, I think that was before sometime in 2014, 2013, 2014, 2015, I do not remember which exact year. It used to be an Excel template. You download it, you fill it, and then you upload it. Then it was changed. It's also filed separately, differently. It will be a video for another day. So it's no longer filed using this template as of today. That is income tax for a presumptive taxpayer. Presumptive taxpayer is just a taxpayer that is small. These are people whose turnover is less than 150 million. Of course, this excludes professionals like lawyers, doctors, engineers, okay, audit firms, accountants, Okay, then we have the local excise duty return form. That's how it is. Then we have the gaming tax return form. Okay, we have the gaming. This one is what they use, every month. Then there are those that are filed weekly, every Wednesday of every week. The gaming tax, the weekly return form. This is for gaming companies mostly. Then we have the monthly VAT return form. It is right there. Then we have the diplomatic VAT return form. Okay, diplomats are not supposed to pay VAT, so they're supposed to declare the VAT they have filed so that they are refunded. That is the form they use. Then the return filing for bulk assessment agent. This is mostly for people who deal in, statutory instruments that they have executed and they're in bulk. This is their form. So basically, the purpose of this video was just to give you an overview of what a tax return is and where these tax returns are found. You can find these tax returns when you have logged into your account, or even when you've not logged into your account, you are still able to access them and download them according to your needs. And then you go ahead and make that declaration to the tax body. This is Arnold Kisembo Ragakuramia. Thank you for watching.